Mr. Ronan Finnegan. It's good to see you.
Hello. Thanks for
How's
chatting.
life?
Good to see you. Yeah, it's all good.
Where are you
We
today?
I am sat in Portugal. We've had sunshine after 3 months of rain.
hmm And you
And
just
you
got
stay?
home, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was in Slovakia last week. I went to the
You
snow.
you travel like twice a month, I'm gonna say. Once a month, twice a month.
Yeah, I'm away for 6 months of the year generally. I use this as my
hmm
base, but I go to the mountains in the winter for at least 2 months, and then otherwise I'm here in the summer when it's nice, and the rest of the year I'm dotting in and out of different places. My work means that I need to be in the UK for sometimes, and otherwise I just travel for fun. I try to get away as much as I can before little mini Ronans head my way and stop me from doing that full time.
Okay. I mean, you've been living this way for quite a few years now, right?
Yeah,
Like pretty much
10 years.
nomadic.
Yeah, 10 odd years, 11 years since leaving
Oh,
school.
do you know how many countries you visited?
I think it's somewhere around 105-ish
Whoa,
now.
that's even more than I thought. My God. You've been all over the world, right?
Yeah, and the big continent yet to do is yet to see is Africa. I've been to Morocco, but nowhere else in there. There's 52 countries within Africa, but largely that's been driven down to the fact that I've been working full time whilst doing travel.
hmm
Typically, that means that having a complete disconnect of Wi-Fi is a little bit more tricky on an Africa trip than it would be in Asia or Europe or South America or North America.
Yeah, I mean, look, I last time I was in Africa, I was in West Africa, was like 2012. That's what, oh God, 12 years ago now. And like at that time, there was reasonable in that you could use email, internet available in every little town that we visited. But like we were essentially like at coastal places where there's a port or something. So, like those are places that are relatively, you know, like places that need to have trade links and communications links. I think if you go further inland, you run out of that. And then there's also the fact that like you can't do a Zoom call or whatever. Although I'm sure it's developed a lot since, especially in the big cities and stuff. But if you're going to
Yeah, I
do a
wonder
long term trip,
if even cell signal would be sufficient enough. Like Wi-Fi is another thing, question altogether in hotels or apartments or Airbnbs or whatever. But
mhm.
like, can you get cell when you were there? Could you get cell signal everywhere you went, or would you just have complete
Like
nothingness?
that was before I had my first smartphone. I mean,
Uh,
and from what I know, like from like there are like depends on the country. Like somewhere like Nigeria, like they have 5G in a couple of the big cities. But a lot of places, you'd be still be stuck if you're going out of town. If you're going out of country, you're gonna have trouble.
yeah, yeah. I was in Georgia last winter, and I had a lot of work commitments at the time. We were closing our investment round. And I was looking into Starlink with like, okay, I'll get this for liability. Do you know how much a Starlink is?
Five to
Wi-Fi?
10 grand.
Yeah, they're expensive as yeah, it's like $750 a month, I think.
Okay, so yeah, essentially 10 grand a year.
Yeah, yeah. I was expecting like a 40, $50 subscription, just sold at mass, but I understand its value where you can't, there's no alternative, but so expensive.
What is it? Is it like a little tabletop, like dish or something like that?
It looks like a Wi-Fi router, but
Yeah.
yeah, tabletop dish, and then I guess you tether to it in the same way you would a Wi-Fi router, but it just permanently has connection.
Okay, that's interesting. So what is it? Is it doing? Is it connecting into a local cellular network, or are you
No,
actually
no, it's
having to
pulling
get line
into
of sight?
it's
It's
pulling into
satellite.
that it's a satellite. So it has the satellite. There's no, even if the satellite is on the other side of the world, it still connects. I guess no idea how, but I imagine the connection is a circle rather than a direct line.
Do you think satellite connections always have to triangulate? They always have 3 points. Like they must have put up a network of satellites.
But you can see the Starlink every now and again when if you look into the sky on a clear night, where you see like the lines, like say, it's almost like very slow shooting stars. There's 4 or 5 of them in the line. But
Oh,
yeah,
really?
maybe they have a number of them, but I've seen it, but I
Okay.
just don't know if there's multiple. Either way, it didn't work because I'm a cheapskate, so I never went through with the purchase.
You launched a business and kind of had almost like an accidental runaway success during COVID, right?
Yeah,
Talk
complete
about that.
accidental. So I started the business I'm still running today, 4 years later, 4.5 years later, selling a contact tracing wearable within the pandemic. So
Hmm.
when the pandemic came, I was in Mexico, I believe, and then was forced home as all the borders and stuff were closing. Actually, no, I came home for a friend's wedding and then got trapped in the UK and never got on my return flight back to South America because all the borders were shutting down. And then within the course of that chaos of my location changing, I had a text from a friend of mine with this idea for a contact tracing wearable or some level of solution for the problem of keeping some level of analytics for when two people would come together so that you could inform decisions about testing, you could inform decisions about hiring, about staff capacity, about whatever. So within 6 weeks, we ran that product. So we had a prototype. It was super basic, just a Bluetooth antenna inside a device with a vibration monitor that beeped and alerted when two people came together. The device would then store that data, capture it, and sync with a mobile application that we had later built so that you could analyze who had been next to who. So that was how we ended up with a COVID business. Yeah.
And your friend who you co-founded the business with, because you were, as we said, like being sort of nomadically traveling around the world for 10 years. So, the sort of the needs and challenges of a corporate health policy during the pandemic probably wasn't top of mind for you. Was how did this kind of idea come about? Did your friend spotted something happening in industry, or was he already working in a corporation?
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, to be frank, it wasn't his idea. It was his ex-girlfriend's mum's, and we're happy sharing that because we've said it candidly a number of times.
Okay.
They were at dinner in his ex-girlfriend's house and having discussion around COVID. Initially, it was headline news. It feels very Black Mirror saying this now, but if it was headline news with keeping children would go in schools were the first to go back before all the workplaces were opening again. And it was headline news about how they're going to keep all these kids apart and therefore how they're going to keep the disease from spreading. So they were just having this discussion at a dinner table around that, and his ex-girlfriend, his mum, had said, "Hey, like, why not have a watch that beeps and alerts so you get close?" So Harry then was like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." Like she said to him openly, "Like, you go and do it. I'm not going to go do it." And then he went to go and do it and realized that he didn't know how to do it. But given that I'd had a bunch of different businesses prior to that, prior to running Spaceman, I've had 7 different businesses over the course of the last 10 years. So he knew that I had already built mobile apps in my app development company. I'd already run marketing campaigns within the marketing agency I ran. And I understood just tech in general because I've always been read up and know what's going on through the nature of having businesses, but also having a personal interest in it. So he turned to me and said, "Hey, how do I do this? Can you do it with me?" So at the time, I had commitments to another business. I had already cash flowed inventory for that business, but it was an opportunist time. So I took the plunge. We went 50-50 in on it. We took no debt, no investment. And within our first year, we made 450K of revenue, selling 20,000 products across 30 countries to 1,000 businesses. And those businesses included Amazon, Sony, Panasonic, the NHS, the MOD, and a whole bunch of others.
It's crazy. Like it blew up literally out of nowhere, right? Like within a couple of months.
Oh yeah, it blew up within a couple of months would be a fair statement for sure. Like it's media helped us quite a lot. We got in like the BBC News. We were on the Jimmy Fallon show in the US. Martin Lewis in the UK had our wrist watch on him. We were on Netflix production sites. We were on the word got around quickly, and a lot of those big brand logos helped us more than we could have imagined. Because it's all good and well saying, "Oh, we sold to 1,000 businesses," but in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of numbers. But the fact that we had the big brands early on just gave us a certain rapport when we go and sell to others.
So how are you able to keep up with demand? Because that's like the opposite problem to what most people have. How are you able to actually get this? People were lining up to give you money. How the hell are you creating the watches quick enough to satisfy them?
We had a manufacturing partner in China who were then shipping us to our UK warehouse, which was the spare room. We'd work in the
At your
day.
mum's.
Yeah. So we'd work in the day, and then by night we'd fulfill all the orders. It was a really weird, like, operational structure to the business because of the nature of the fact that it was COVID. Like, one, everything was closed. Even if we wanted to have like a fulfillment partner, we couldn't because they were closed. But two, the growth of the business was so dependent on government guidelines. Like, the business could have been shut down the following day, not for wrongful operations, but more just for the fact that the product would have no need because people would start returning back to their lives and therefore want social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as we were growing it, we were also hesitant to like invest in full fulfillment, invest in huge product enhancements, invest in huge overthrows of an app or new versions of our campaigns because we found something that was working, and then we just held to our guns, kept the messaging as simple as possible, and just kept our inventory. I think we always had about 5K in stock of devices. But then we were always able to just fulfill orders on a next day service within Europe. Within the
Okay.
UK and Europe was like 7 days, I think, or 5 days.
So even though it took off, you knew like that it was, this is a make hay while the sun shines type of situation, that it's not going to last in the way it was. Is that right?
Oh yeah, for sure, for certain.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was a somewhat unhealthy period, I guess, of my life. More because I was just working for like 16 hours a day. Like, I was doing that, and then I had another brand that I was running on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working 7 days a week from 10 till 10 as a minimum.
But you couldn't travel, so I guess you had nothing else to do at that time
Exactly.
anyway.
So I did that for 9 months, and then I went back to the life that was before.
And that business is still around because you proactively said, okay, we need to find something else to do with this business once this COVID period comes to an end, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we started to. It would have been set. So we started the business in March 21. No, March 2020. And in September 21, we completed the pivot that I'm about to explain. So when the pandemic started to close, it all started to feel quite ironic quite quickly because, like, I started to return to my normal life. Harry started to return to his, in that we'd go and meet with friends and we'd socialize. We'd keep to the rules and be respectful, but like, we were young people living in a city, so we'd go to parties. We'd go and meet up with people when the guidelines was sort of relaxing. So then it felt very like immoral to sell people this dream of, oh, keep your staff isolated because for this benefit, this benefit, this benefit, when we weren't doing the same. So we sat down within a month of that kind of all unfolding. We sat down and said, hey, look, let's go do something else. This doesn't feel right anymore. Our inventory was already low because at that time it was clear that the vaccines, it's weird, these keywords used to be such like common practice, and now you're like forgetting they even exist. But that was all in all the headline news, so we knew it was kind of tailing off anyway. So we turned to our customer base in these big organizations and said to them, hey, look, what do you want us to build next? They knew that we had like an understanding of wearable technologies, so naturally that was kind of the rough direction, just semantically, that they were going to send us. But we asked them what pain they had within their roles, and then therefore we built a solution around that. So these people were health and safety managers operating in largely construction, manufacturing, production. And the pain point that we uncovered is that health and safety technology traditionally is super like unbelievably simple. It's still using technology that was developed in the 1990s or 1980s. They have decibel readers that monitor loud noise, and it's like a big box that you go out into a warehouse and go, yeah, that one's loud. Or they have machine to person collision detections, but they're like radios that go on the top of forklifts, and like it's just like it's not a glamorous space to innovate within because like it's a construction site, right? Like if you're really materialistic or you've got a huge ego, you're not going to want to have a health and safety business to drive around in your Ferrari and gloat that you run this health and safety business. Like, it's not a cool business to run. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so because of that, it's prime for disruption. Like, these people had this pain where the technology was super old and it all had a very singular feature focus. So therefore, there was no way to uncover trends between one hazard to the next. So we built a wrist-worn device that had a bunch of sensors in it and would beep an alert when the staff were in a dangerous situation, and then aggregate all this data together so that you could detect trends between one hazard and the next.
So I tease that out a little bit because there's multiple benefits. One is the prevention of accidents is that it's designed to do. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then there's the documentation of accidents when they happen.
Yeah, exactly. So if maybe I take a more generalist view that the device has these sensors inside of it. So for example, we prevent loud noise, we prevent people and machines coming together, we prevent hand-arm vibration, we prevent overworked hours. There's 15 other hazards. The device will beep and alert in real time when that hazard's happening. So if you imagine it's loud noise, it will beep, the screen will light up and say, hey, it's loud, put your headphones on. When you put your headphones on, the device will stop. Same rule applies if you walk through an unauthorized access zone or you walk onto a construction site. It will say, hey, you need PPE requirements at this point of the site. So from a prevention perspective, it stops the health and safety manager or general manager shouting at people as they enter a site to say, hey, look, you need to go put your hard hat on. So it removes that tension within the workplace and therefore creates a better culture. It also puts safety in the forefront of someone's mind by the fact that it's like a nudge theory exercise. It's telling people constantly, hey, you're in a dangerous situation. You need to be putting this on, or you need to be acting like this, or you need to have this certificate to be in this area. Now, once that data is captured, the device stores it locally and sends it up to our dashboard or mobile app when the device is put on charge, so that the health and safety manager can log in at the end of their working day and see their construction site of 200 employees and say, wait a second, loud noise events have gone up massively today. They were half of what they were yesterday. Sorry, that yesterday they were half of what they are today. So what's going on? And then they can see that maybe the machine to person collisions have come close. So therefore the loud noise events are increasing because too many people are getting too close to the machine. So the training isn't in fact needed for loud noise, but instead needed for machine to person collision. That could be training in the form of the people who are coming close, or it could be training in the drivers. So that's just one instance of a whole bunch of others that I could go into. As I said, there's 15 sensors within this first launch, but this feature set will grow past that once we get past launch, which is happening in May after 2.5 years of development.
Okay. And so you had these existing customer base and were they actually placing pre-orders with you and saying, yeah, like you gave them a presentation for what the new technology would be, and they were like, yeah, we're in, we'll buy this from you.
Yeah, so not pre-orders as in we hadn't taken POs from these people, but pre-orders in that they contributed to what the features were going to be. They contributed to the user journeys of the system. So naturally, they have a buy-in to make the product a success. So yeah, lots of those customers are becoming repeat customers when we launch in May.
And you went from a position of you had a hot product that was selling out to actually going into, and you were selling initially what was somewhat of a commodity product, but now you've gone down this road of like developing your own custom technology, which is, you know, notoriously expensive to do. And as you say, it's taken quite a long time. How did you actually get through that period when you didn't actually have like a product to sell right now?
So we had some cash in the bank following the success of that first product. So we had 225K of EBITDA on year one, and year two we made a little bit extra. So it meant that we had enough cash to float the business through whilst we were in this development cycle. So we'd invested some of that, but we'd naively expected that we could build the second product with just those profits, because for us that was more money than we'd ever anticipated seeing, never mind having in a year. So we were like, okay, this is great, like we can build anything. And then of course we started the development and realized, hang on, this isn't possible. this is going to cost way more, because the product they're offering was so much more complex than what the original device was. The original device, like I said, it was a Bluetooth antenna that beeped and vibrated. This device had 10 different sensors inside of it. It had a charging station, it had a proximity beacon, it had a mobile app that could work offline and online, it had a dashboard that had a whole bunch of different user journeys and different user views, and on top of that, the messaging and the positioning of the product was a lot more complex because we had two offerings. One was the sensors, the upfront, the real-time alerts for the end user, and the second offering is for health and safety manager. And then on top of that, again, there's all the stakeholders that come into it, the C-suites that you've got to speak to, the HR people you've got to speak to, the partnerships and integration of the IT security teams. Like it was way more complex. So long way to say a short thing. We decided we'd go down and get investment.
So you went out and you met with VCs, or did you go to a fund?
So we validated it first with angels. So we just cold outreached on LinkedIn. We had no one in our network, and literally duck soup, LinkedIn automation. Hey, do you want to invest in this? Hey, do you want to invest in this? Hey, do you want to invest in this? We did that for maybe 3 months.
Hmm.
Raised maybe, I can't remember the exact number, but let's say 150 of angels. So then when we went to VCs, the proposition was a lot like more defined. One, we'd improved our pitching through the nature of failing 100 times pitching to angels and realizing they don't like it when you say this, they do like it when you say this. So then when we went to VCs, it was an easier journey, but nevertheless still months and months of pitching. So within our seed round, we raised 750 and got some grant funding. And then that's seen us through for 2 years of development with some bumps in the road, with development taking longer than anticipated.
Okay. And then, so at that point, to get that investment, did you have to give away equity in the company, or was there a different vehicle for that?
Yeah, no, we gave away equity.
Hmm. And did the investment come like uh primarily just in the form of like a cash investment, or were there strings attached? Was there form like a mentorship that came along with it, or guidance, or help with product development and your own development as a business?
Yeah, so I mean, all of the above. So sure, it comes with cash primarily, but the guidance that we have supporting the business is phenomenal. Like lots of the investors are not just cash; they're like they provide value in terms of operations, in terms of introductions, in terms of just direction pointing. I guess a lot of them have done what we're doing 10 times over, and we're just using their systems. Otherwise, we've completed now 2 accelerator programs. One was exclusively based around workplace tech. So that gave us an understanding of the dynamics of maybe different stakeholders that we'd be selling into, or how to run a professional business in these sectors. And then the other accelerator we've recently completed is an insurance one, which sits as an entirely different narrative into what I've just explained, but it's another product that will sit above our product, which will be our real money-making offer.
And this is the idea of the actual product itself being something that's very valuable to the insurance industry, because that kind of data is important to them for understanding how to
Yeah, that's
sell their products, right? How to build and sell their insurance products.
exactly, yeah. Or it just prevents them paying out claims if they can understand the risk profile of a business. Because there's one very important note to the product, which I'm yet to mention. I've just realized this, but the product by design is privacy first. It's an anonymous system that any user can pick up any device on any day, and the company will benefit from the aggregated data set rather than an individualized data set. So they can't tell off Sam for smoking for too long or Sally for going to the bathroom for too long, but instead they can just see that the trends are what they are. So the insurance market love this, because other technology solutions, you can't share the data in a modern world. GDPR prevents you from sharing personal data, but we built the system so that one, we capture no personal data at any time, and two, it's anonymous, so it can easily be filtered into other partnerships within insurance.
This is really interesting that the anonymity of the data has made it more valuable.
Yeah, but the only reason that happened,
Hmm.
well, maybe there's some moral compass in there, but the main reason it happened is because we built the product that our customers wanted us to make. So the customers wanted it to be private.
But so this came from your customers where they told you data privacy is a big issue for us.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
they wanted, because no one wants a big brother product overlooking their whole business. They want to keep it as private as they can, so that they have the information. If they want to attribute a device to an individual, they can do that on their company side and put it on a spreadsheet or whatever. But a third party company like us doesn't need to see what's going on and doesn't need to be able to call out individuals.
Yes. And it understands that it creates kind of a firewall between you as a technology provider and them as a company, where they
Yeah,
don't feel like you're a spy inside their business.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, no, it's really interesting, and like these kind of fine details are stuff that you can never possibly foresee at the beginning. They only become apparent through talking to people inside the space, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we would never have. You asked me 5 years ago if I'd have a health and safety business, I would have said no. You asked me if I'd have an insurance business, I would have said no.
Yes. So at this point now, I mean, you're like creating a completely brand new type of product in an industry where you had really very little prior experience. I mean, how much has the value of like mentorship from people helped you along the way?
God, tenfold. Like, there's no way that I could have built the scale of this on my own. Like, absolutely no way. Like, I've built other businesses in the past and they've come nowhere near the size or even just the professionalism of this one
Hmm.
because it's other people guiding the whole process. Like, sure, I'm operationally doing stuff as is Harry or the employees within the business, but it's other people who are saying, hey, you should look to pull this string. Hey, you should speak to this person. Hey, you should change that positioning instead, say it like this. And it's those small little changes that when someone else can see the business from the outside in, that makes the biggest impact.
And how many people do you have now? What size is your team?
There's now 5. There were 7. We've just downsized.
And for you, what is like, what role do you take at this point in the business? Are you a product development type person? Are you sales? Where
Yeah,
do you fit in?
product development and marketing as a development, marketing, and operations, and Harry does the sales. So
Okay.
we bring in leads, and then he just nurtures them.
And what have you done for lead generation at this point? Has it been like direct outreach to the industry, or have you actually been running paid traffic, or what way do you bring actually attention to your product?
Yeah, so for now it's largely sales driven. So we've got a whole bunch of organic marketing content that we're doing. We're doing newsletters, we're doing blogs, we're doing random comments on LinkedIn, that sort of stuff, the
Mhm.
obvious. But it's largely just tracking people down on LinkedIn, scraping their email, sending them a few campaigns, like a auto response campaign in their LinkedIn messages that then also collaborates with their email sequence, and then giving them a call somewhere or a nudge somewhere along the journey. And then for marketing, we've got paid campaigns all set to go, but to be honest, at the moment we've already sold our first production run, so we're not overselling anymore until we get to launch because we're just going to have to disappoint people with timelines otherwise. So we haven't turned on our paid campaigns, but they're ready to go.
Okay, so you're at this point now. You're ready to roll out your beta launch of the product and get the feedback from the first run.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got feedback from the first run of the product. We're now on prototype 3. We'll run our first 100 units in 3 weeks, I think. And then our first 1,000 units will come in May.
Amazing, it's awesome, and it's crazy you've come so far on it. I didn't like. I knew that you were doing all this stuff, but like this is the first time I've had to really talk with you about it in depth, and it's amazing.
Thank you. I
And
can
yeah,
take a
you were
fraction
like,
of the credit.
you, it's interesting because like you were that guy. Like, I mean, what age you finish your A levels at school, right? Like about 17, 18,
Yeah. Yeah, 17, 18.
and you were just like, screw university, I'm going traveling. Like you weren't even really like ambitious to be an entrepreneur at that point. You're just like, I just want to go see the world, right?
Yeah. But
And yet,
I still have that same value, regardless of this work. Like, life is my priority over work and always will remain the same.
have you been able to balance that with actually building a business like this, which I'm guessing most of the people you work with are quite different?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Like I have a policy where I will not lie. So if someone asks me where I am, I tell them where I am. I don't need to say it. Sometimes I don't say it, but otherwise, yeah, like it works just by being genuine to what you're doing in your lifestyle. As long as the output's good, like no one really cares. It only becomes a problem if the output's not good.
Hmm. And do you have like your team, are they on the ground in the UK? Because that seems to be like your primary base of operations and where you've built your client relationships first, right?
Yeah, so it's remote first. Like we have an office space in Bristol and we have an office space in Cardiff, but we don't really use them. We just run them, yeah, all remote. We had a member of staff in Lithuania, one in the north of England, a couple in Wales, a couple in the south of England, and then I'm in Portugal. So we haven't needed, yeah, an office space, nor would I want one, to be honest. I quite like having the flexible working hours. Our working hours are 10 until 4, and then you make up any other hours around that. So you can go and if you want to go for a walk in the afternoon or a surf or a climb, or you want to go and drop the kids off at school, go wild.
And do you have at this point, like, we said like your initial success with this was sort of, it was like an accidental, like kind of, you caught lightning and then pivoted and you said, okay, we're going to be a bit more intentional and create this next product. And you're now at that point where that pivot's coming to fruition. So do you now have like a vision for the next 3 years and 5 years of where this business is going to go and what it can
Yeah,
be?
yeah. We've got like yeah. There's like by this point there's a refined plan because we've had such a long development cycle that we've been able to get ahead of where we need to be basically, rather than chasing our tail. Because the nature of hardware is that, well, we've outsourced the hardware development, so although we've like structured it and we've input what the contents of that hardware are going to be,
Mm-hmm.
because it's outsourced, we've got to wait for the development partner to build it, which has given us these extra few months to plan what our new features are going to be within the software, what our new partnerships are going to be, what's going to happen when we open up that insurance world, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we have a plan. Whether it extends to 5 years might be an overstatement, but there's a plan in place.
Amazing. I love it. It's really great to see and hear. And yeah, we're family. So for anyone who's watching this, me and Ronan are cousins, our mothers are sisters, and I'm guessing your mum and dad are probably incredibly proud of like all you've done.
They'll try to be, and then I'll make a sarky joke, and then they'll realize that there's nothing to be proud for.
um, yeah, it's been really, really interesting. We've talked for nearly an hour, and I could probably talk couple more hours about other stuff, but we might get into too personal territory that other people might not be interested in. If people want to find out about you, I don't, you don't have to give me the full URLs, but where's the best place to kind of learn a bit more about you and what you do?
Just on LinkedIn, yeah, Ronan Finnegan on LinkedIn will probably be the easiest place,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and all other contact will come through there, I imagine.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, Sean.
Gonna stop the recording now. Cheers, Ron.